Close your eyes. No, really close them, not for a second. Hold them shut for 5, maybe 6 seconds, long enough to feel the warmth of the Spanish sun pressing against your eyelids, long enough for the ambient noise to fade just a little. Now open them. You're standing at the edge of the court at the Mutua Madrid Open, not in the nosebleeds, not in a luxury box with champagne and air conditioning. You're down at ground level, so close you could almost reach out and touch the red dust that covers every inch of this place. Leaning closer, closer than you probably should. Tune out the screaming fans, the corporate announcements, the non-stop chatter of broadcasters trying to fill every silent second with something clever. Tune out all of that and listen. If you listen hard enough, you'll hear it. A sound that doesn't belong anywhere else in sports. A sliding, scraping, grinding noise. Rubber soles dragging across crushed brick. The sound of a human body pushing past what it thought were its limits. The sound of lungs begging for air they can't get. The sound of legs that have turned to wood to stone to something heavy and useless. That's the sound of clay court tennis. That's the sound of friction, not just between shoe and dirt, but between ambition and reality, between youth and experience, between a dream and the brutal truth of competition. Welcome to the clay. Welcome to the modern-day gladiator arena, a place where careers are forged in the fire of 100-shot rallies, where hype gets tested so violently that it either hardens into steel or shatters into dust. Welcome to the place where the sun doesn't just shine, it punishes. Where the red dirt doesn't just cover the court, it gets into your shoes, your socks, your sweat, your lungs, your soul. And when the match is over, you don't just walk away. You limp away. You crawl away. Or you don't walk away at all until someone raises your arm in victory. You are not simply tuning in for a tennis match today. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. What you're about to witness is a collision, not a gentle meeting. A collision. Two entirely different universes, two opposing philosophies of sport, two generations that don't quite understand each other, smashing together on a rectangle of red dirt. On one side of the net, you have raw, unbridled, almost reckless exuberance. You have youth that still believes it's invincible because it hasn't yet learned just how fragile everything really is. You have a blazing meteor of potential, a 20-year-old who moves like she's been playing this surface her whole life because she basically has. And she's carrying something heavy, something most players her age never have to think about. She's carrying the desperate hopes, the whispered prayers, the sleepless nights of an entire nation. A nation of over 100 million people who have never really had anyone like her before. On the other side of the net, standing in the shadows, not hiding, just waiting, just watching, you have the ultimate gatekeeper. An icy, calculating, ruthless veteran, a Grand Slam champion, a woman who has made a very lucrative, very comfortable career out of one specific skill, breaking the hearts of rising stars. She doesn't hate them, she doesn't wish them ill. She just sends them back to the locker room with a quiet lesson about the gap between potential and results. This is not just a second-round match in a WTA 1000 tournament. This is a generational clash. This is explosive momentum stepping into the ring with surgical, unyielding stability. This is raw athletic power going toe-to-toe with absolute tactical genius. This is Alex Eala versus Elise Mertens. And the entire tennis world, it's holding its collective breath. To even begin to understand the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of this moment, you have to go deeper. You have to understand the journey of the 20-year-old prodigy standing on the baseline right now, bouncing the ball, starring across the net with an expression that tries to hide everything but fails completely. Alex Eala is not just another young player on the WTA tour hopping to scrape together a few ranking points and make a name for herself in between commercials. She is a phenomenon. She is a cultural icon in the making. She comes from the Philippines, a country with a massive, deeply passionate sports culture that has historically belonged to basketball and boxing. Those are the sports that fill stadiums. Those are the sports that produce heroes. Those are the sports that grandparents tell grandchildren about. Tennis has barely left a footprint in the elite, exclusive echelons of professional sports in the Philippines. There's no blueprint. There's no conveyor belt of champions before her. There's no older Filipino legend to call for advice when things get hard. Because of that, Alex Eala is carrying a psychological burden that would absolutely crush the spirit of most players her age. If she were just playing for herself, maybe it would be easier. But she's not. When she steps out of that tunnel and her sneakers touch the red clay, she's not just playing for prize money. She's not just playing for a trophy. She's not just playing for ranking points that will help her climb the ladder. She's playing for over 100 million Filipinos back home who have become completely, obsessively captivated by her journey. Right now, at this very moment, on the other side of the world, it is the middle of the night. But no one is sleeping. Families are staying up until 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, until the sun starts to rise and they have to go to work or school anyway. Their eyes are glued to television screens and smartphones, living and dying with every single swing of her racket, every gasp of breath, every point won, every point lost. She's the undeniable beating heart of her nation's sporting pride. But let's get one thing perfectly straight, because the feel-good story can sometimes obscure the truth. Alex Eala is not just a great, heartwarming underdog who makes people cry happy tears. She's a terrifyingly dangerous tennis player who has arrived at this tournament with one goal: to take heads. You do not become this good this fast by accident. You do not step onto the world stage at 20 years old and command this kind of respect from players, coaches, and analysts through sheer luck or a nice personality. You become this good through the crucible of elite, punishing, almost inhuman training. Eala is a premium product of the legendary Rafa Natal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. Let that reality sink into your mind for a moment. Let it settle there like a stone dropping into deep water. She has been molded in the very same environment, under the exact same grueling philosophy, as the greatest clay court player to ever walk the face of the earth. The natal ethos is not something she was taught like a textbook lesson. It has been etched directly into her athletic DNA through years of sweat and tears and mornings that started before the sun came up. It is a philosophy built on relentless suffering, not suffering for its own sake but suffering as the path to greatness. It is a mindset of absolute refusal to ever give up on a single ball, no matter how far out of reach it seems, no matter how tired you are, no matter how loudly your body is screaming at you to stop. It is the unwavering commitment to treating every single point in the first set as if it were championship point in the final of a Grand Slam. You can see that undeniable Spanish influence bleeding into every single aspect of her game. She possesses an explosive fast-twitch athleticism that literally jumps off the screen. When you watch her footwork on the clay, it is nothing short of mesmerizing. She does not just run on this surface. She glides, she flows, she seems to understand the subtle, chaotic, unpredictable physics of the red dirt in a way that most players spend their entire careers trying to learn. She knows exactly how to slide into a wide defensive stance, plant her outside foot just right to arrest her momentum, and then, in the absolute blink of an eye, turn a desperate defensive retrieve into a blistering, heavy topspin offensive strike. She plays with a violence and a passion that demands your attention, that pulls your eyes to her even when something else is happening on the court. If you want concrete proof of her rapid, terrifying evolution, you do not need to look very far into the history books. You just need to look at what she did a few days ago in the first round of this very tournament. The draw gods were not kind to her. They rarely are when you're young and on the rise. They handed her an absolute nightmare of a first-round matchup. She was drawn against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, a battle-tested former finalist at the French Open, a woman who knows exactly how to bully opponents on clay, a woman who has seen it all. Who has been in the trenches more times than Eala has even played professional matches. A woman who hits a brutally heavy, punishing ball that can tear the racket right out of a young player's hands if they're not careful. The global tennis critics, the odds makers, the analysts, they looked at that matchup and collectively agreed on something. They agreed that it would be a tough learning experience for the young Filipina. They thought she would be outmuscled. They thought she would be overpowered by the veteran's sheer physical force. They thought she might win a set if everything went perfectly, but that ultimately experience would win the day. They were wrong. They were dead, profoundly, laughably wrong. What Alex Eala delivered in that opening round was not just a win. It was a violent masterclass in controlled aggression. It was a resounding statement that echoed through locker rooms and practice courts all over Madrid. She did not just beat a former Grand Slam finalist, she dismantled her. She took her apart piece by piece like a mechanic stripping down an engine to see how it works. Straight sets, 6-3, 6-3 in just over an hour and a half. Eala showcased a brand new, vastly improved, highly lethal clay court game that no one had seen before. Her racket head speed was blinding. Her shot making was absolutely fearless. She painted the lines with zero hesitation, zero fear of missing, zero voice in her head telling her to play it safe. But most impressively, most shockingly for a 20-year-old in a big stadium against a big name, her mental focus was carved from solid granite. When the pressure mounted, when the stadium got loud, when every eye in the building was on her, she did not flinch. When Pavlyuchenkova tried to assert her physical dominance and hit through the court, Eala pushed right back. She absorbed the massive pace and redirected it down the line with lethal, pinpoint intent. The reaction to that first-round victory was purely electric. Social media exploded like someone had set off fireworks in a server farm. The tennis community woke up, rubbed its collective eyes, and realized that the hype surrounding this girl is completely urgently real. This is now her third consecutive year advancing past the first round in Madrid, definitively proving that her success in the Spanish capital is not some lucky fluke. It is a proven pattern. It is her territory now. There is a brand new life in her game this year. There is a visible swagger in her step, a confidence in her shoulders that wasn't there before. The momentum she has built over the last few months is a massive, towering tidal wave, and she is riding it beautifully, surfing it perfectly, aiming it directly at the upper echelon of the sport. But there is always a but in sports. There is always a shadow that follows the light. As the old painful saying goes in professional tennis and in every sport that has ever existed, there is always a bigger monster waiting in the dark. You can climb the mountain, but there is always a dragon guarding the peak. You can win the battle, but the war is never over. And in the round of 64 at the Mutua Madrid Open, that dragon takes the form of Elise Mertens. If Alex Eala is the blazing, uncontrollable fire that burns everything in its path, Elise Mertens is the freezing Ford, absolute zero, ice so cold it burns. The 30-year-old Belgian veteran is currently ranked number 21 in the world in singles. But let me tell you right now, that number does not even begin to scratch the surface of her pedigree or her danger. We have to talk about something that casual fans often overlook. We have to talk about her doubles career. Mertens is a reigning dominant powerhouse in doubles, with multiple Grand Slam titles under her belt. And if you are wondering why her doubles resume matters in a singles match of this magnitude, let me explain something to you. It matters everything. Elite doubles players see the geometry of a tennis court completely differently than anyone else on the planet. They are tactical masterminds. They are playing three-dimensional chess while everyone else is playing checkers on a flat board. They know exactly how to cut off angles before those angles even materialize. They know how to transition from the baseline to the net flawlessly, seamlessly in a way that leaves opponents flat-footed and confused. And their hands at the net, they are like lightning strikes, quick, precise, deadly. Mertens possesses a tennis IQ that is simply off the charts. She's not going to blow you off the court with a 120-mile-per-hour serve that you can't even see. She is not going to hit a smoking forehand winner from 10 feet behind the baseline that makes the crowd gasp. What she will do is far worse. She will slowly, methodically, and painfully suffocate you. She will take everything you love about playing tennis and turn it into a chore. She will make you hate the sport by the third set, even if you're winning. Elise Mertens is the human equivalent of a brick wall covered in barbed wire. She is known universally on the tour for her maddening, soul-crushing consistency. She forces her opponents to hit one more ball, and then another, and then another. And then another until their lungs are burning for oxygen, until their legs feel like they are filled with wet cement, until their mind, their strong, focused warrior mind, begins to fracture under the pressure of having to construct point after point after point with no room for error. She thrives in the deep, dark waters of long, grueling rallies. She knows how to absorb immense power and send it right back with interest, with a little something extra attached. She knows how to read the body language of a young, eager player. She watches the way they walk between points. She watches their breathing, is it steady or shallow? She watches the tiny facial expressions that betray doubt. She finds the microscopic crack in their emotional armor, the one they don't even know is there, and she exploits it ruthlessly without a single ounce of mercy. And perhaps the most terrifying fact of all for the Eala camp today is this: Elise Mertens already knows exactly how to beat Alex Eala. We cannot talk about this monumental matchup without addressing the massive elephant in the room. We have to talk about the history. We have to talk about the head-to-head record. These two women have met before in the theater of combat. It was back in 2023 on the blistering, lightning-fast hard courts of Monastir. It was a highly anticipated clash back then too, the kind of match that gets circled on calendars. But it turned into something else entirely. It turned into a brutal, humiliating lesson for the young Filipina. Mertens took the match 7-5, 6-0, let me repeat that. 6-0 in the second set, a bagel, a 0. The kind of scoreline that stays with you long after the tournament ends. It was not just a loss, it was a tactical clinic. It was an absolute dissection, the kind of performance that coaches show to their students as an example of how experience can completely negate raw talent. Mertens used every single ounce of her veteran savvy to completely derail Eala's rhythm. She exposed her youth. She exposed her impatience on the fast hard court. She baited the young star into hitting low-percentage shots, stood back, and watched as Eala hit ball after ball into the net or wide into the alleys. It is a memory that surely lingers in the dark corners of Alex Eala's mind. It is a psychological scar that aches every time she hears the Belgian's name mentioned in a draw announcement. But here is the twist. Here is the beautiful, dramatic, spine-tingling wrinkle that makes this particular match in Madrid the single most compelling story of the entire tournament, maybe of the season so far. We are no longer on a hard court in Monastir. We are not playing a fast, skidding game where the ball stays low and the rallies are short. We are on the deep red clay of Madrid. It is a different surface, a different continent, and an entirely different story. Tennis is a sport deeply governed by the ground beneath the player's feet. It is a game dictated by friction and bounce, by the way the ball interacts with the dirt, by the way the shoe interacts with the surface. On a hard court, the ball skids low and fast. It highly rewards flat, aggressive hitting. It rewards the player who takes the ball incredibly early and rushes their opponent, who refuses to let rallies develop, who ends points before they can become complicated. But clay. Clay is a living, breathing, treacherous entity. It grabs the ball like a hand closing around a stone. It slows the pace down dramatically, giving players more time to think, more time to run, more time to suffer. It makes the ball bounce violently high, kicking up toward the player's shoulders, forcing them to hit from uncomfortable positions. It completely neutralizes massive flat power, and instead heavily rewards extreme topspin, relentless stamina, and the intellectual ability to construct points like a grandmaster setting up a checkmate. Elise Mertens has a very solid record on clay, boasting a win rate of over 60% on the surface throughout her career. She knows how to move on it. She knows how to survive on it. She knows how to use her intelligence to compensate for any lack of natural clay court instincts. Thanks almost entirely to her towering tennis IQ, she is never out of a match no matter the surface. But make no mistake about this, clay is not her primary weapon. Clay is not where she wants to live. It is a surface she tolerates, a surface she has learned to be competent on through years of experience. For Alex Eala, however, clay is home. Clay is her sanctuary. Clay is the dirt she bleeds on, sweats on, suffers on, and loves at the Natal Academy every single day of her life. The high-altitude bounce of the Madrid clay, combined with the gritty texture of the surface, will allow her to fully unleash her explosive, incredibly heavy forehand. The ball will kick up beautifully into her strike zone right where she wants it. The slower surface will give her that extra crucial split second to set up her brutal ground strokes, to load her legs, to uncoil into the shot with maximum force. Furthermore, the thick red dirt will make it significantly harder for Mertens to hit cleanly through the court, forcing the Belgian to rely on placement and trickery rather than pure pace. This is not just a rematch for Alex Eala. This is her golden, undeniable opportunity to drag the veteran out of her comfort zone and plunge her deep into the muddy trenches of a clay court war. This is her chance to rewrite the narrative. Let us break down the physical and tactical warfare that is about to take place between these baselines in just a few moments. When the umpire calls play, when the first ball is tossed into the air and the crowd falls silent for just a heartbeat, you're going to witness a fascinating, highly contrasting clash of styles. Eala is going to try to dictate the terms of engagement from the very first strike. She absolutely has to. She cannot afford to let Mertens settle into a comfortable, hypnotic, metronomic rhythm. If Mertens finds that rhythm, if she starts to feel like she can control the pace of the match, it's over. Eala's entire strategy will rely on her vastly improved blazing court speed to track down Mertens's deeply placed, aggravating balls and then violently shift the momentum of the rally with her aggressive baseline play. She will be looking for those inside-out forehands, the ones that bend around the sideline like a curveball. She will be looking to run around her backhand, the weaker side of almost every player, and punish the ball, pinning Mertens deep into the ad-court corner, trying to break down the veteran's defense through sheer repetitive force. We saw it executed perfectly against Pavlyuchenkova. Eala's ability to generate immense, blinding racket head speed allows her to hit clean winners from seemingly impossible defensive positions, from behind the baseline, from outside the doubles alley, from places where most players would just try to get the ball back in play. That trait is directly inherited from watching Rafa Nadal on these exact same courts doing the same impossible things. But Elise Mertens knows this. The Belgian veteran is completely aware of the incoming storm. She has been in this position before against other young players who thought they could blast her off the court. She will not panic when Eala starts ripping the ball. She will not flinch when the crowd roars for the young Filipina. She will not make the mistake of trying to out-hit her. Mertens will rely heavily on her world-class return game, one of the most underrated weapons in women's tennis. Because of this, Eala must serve with an incredibly high first serve percentage today. There is no way around it. If she falters, if her first serve drops below 60% and she is forced to rely on her second serve, Mertens will step directly inside the baseline. She will take the ball incredibly early, robbing Eala of time and instantly putting the young player on the defensive before the rally has even truly begun. Once the ball is in play, watch carefully what Mertens does. She has a toolkit full of veteran tricks. She will use her nasty, biting backhand slice that stays low and skids through the clay, forcing Eala to bend her knees and scoop the ball up. She will use perfectly disguised drop shots that die completely in the thick dirt, that barely bounce at all, that make you lunge forward only to watch the ball trickle away from your racket. She will constantly change the height, the spin, and the trajectory of the ball. One ball flat and deep, driving you back behind the baseline. The very next ball will be high, loopy, and devoid of pace, forcing you to generate all the power yourself. Her entire goal, her entire tactical blueprint is to disrupt Eala's timing. She wants to frustrate the 20-year-old. She wants Eala to feel like she cannot find a rhythm, like every time she gets comfortable, the ball looks different. She wants the young star to go for too much, too soon, to panic, and to pull the trigger on low-percentage, highlight reel shots that ultimately end up in the bottom of the net or flying wide. The key to this match, the absolute undeniable deciding factor, will not just be physical. It will not just come down to who hits the ball harder or who runs faster or who is still standing after 2 hours of sliding on red dirt. It will be fiercely, brutally psychological. It is going to come down to pure, unadulterated composure in the biggest, most suffocating moments of the match. What happens when the score is locked at 4 games all in the third set? What happens when the sun is beating down like a hammer, both players are exhausted, their shirts are soaked through, their legs are screaming, and Eala finds herself facing a crucial break point? Will the demons of the past resurface? Will she hear the echo of that 6-0 set in Monastir? Will she revert back to the rushed, anxious, inexperienced player who made mistake after mistake under pressure? Or will she take a deep breath? The kind of deep breath that slows down time, look at her coaching box, and channel the icy, rock-solid mental focus she just displayed in the first round? Can she prove that she has outgrown her own past? For Alex Eala, this match is exactly what experts in the sports world call a prove-it moment. When you are a highly touted rising star, when you have the media writing glowing articles about you, when you have the sponsors circling like sharks, there comes a specific point in time when you must graduate. You must graduate from being the plucky, lovable underdog with endless potential to becoming a legitimate, terrifying, undeniable threat to the established order of the WTA Tour. To do that, you have to take a scalp. You have to take down a giant. You have to prove that you can look across the net at a Grand Slam champion, look past their glittering resume, look past their intimidating world ranking, and physically and mentally break their will to win. Eala has all the necessary tools in her arsenal to make this incredibly competitive. She has the fresh 20-year-old legs that recover faster, that can run down one more ball, that can slide into one more split step. She has the fearless, aggressive approach that comes from not yet knowing how much losing hurts. And crucially, she has the massive crowd support. With a huge Filipino diaspora living in Spain, combined with local Spanish fans who view her as an adopted daughter of the natal academy, the stadium is going to sound like a home match for her. You can feel the electric, nervous energy building around her right now, a vibe that cannot be ignored, a buzz that vibrates through the stands and onto the court. But Elise Mertens did not travel to Madrid to be a stepping stone in someone else's fairy tale. She's not going to politely hand over her hard-earned position in the hierarchy of women's tennis. She is the ultimate test. She is the gatekeeper, and gatekeepers don't just open the door because you knock nicely. Mertens has faced dozens of young, hungry, hyped-up players just like Alex Eala over the course of her long, illustrious career. And she has sent almost all of them packing with a harsh dose of reality. Mertens knows how to weather the early storm. She knows that young players often run on pure adrenaline in the first set, hitting unbelievable shots fueled by the crowd and by their own youthful confidence. And she knows exactly how to drain that adrenaline out of them. Drop by drop, point by point, game by game, she will extend the match into a grueling, miserable war of attrition. Forcing Eala to prove that she can suffer as well as she can attack, she will make Eala bleed for every single point, every single breath. If you look at the predictions from tennis analysts and experts around the world this morning, they are completely deeply divided. It is a match that has torn the tennis community in half like a rope pulled from both ends. The traditional conservative minds in tennis are siding heavily with Mertens. They look at the stark contrast in rankings, 21 versus somewhere in the 50s. They look at her tactical brilliance and her miles of experience. They look at that previous head-to-head victory in Monastir and say that experience, guile, and tactical discipline will always triumph over raw youth in high-pressure situations. They fundamentally believe that Mertens' doubles instincts at the net and her uncanny ability to save breakpoints will ultimately wear the young, impatient Filipina down, forcing her into a spiral of unforced errors. But then there are those who look deeper. There are those who do not just read the stat sheets and the rankings, but actually watch the tape. Those who look at the fire burning fiercely in Alex Eala's eyes this week, the kind of fire that doesn't come from a good practice session. A growing number of experts are giving the rising star a massive, legitimate chance to pull off the colossal upset today. They are predicting an absolute brutal dogfight of a three-set war, the kind of match that leaves both players unable to walk normally for days. They point to Eala's heavy topspin, which is perfectly, almost surgically tailored for this exact surface. They point to the overwhelming wave of momentum she is carrying from the first round, the way she dismantled Pavlyuchenkova without mercy. But most importantly, they point to her movement. There is a saying in tennis, passed down from generation to generation: if you can move beautifully on clay, you can beat anyone in the world. And right now, at this moment, Alex Eala is moving like an absolute ghost on the red dirt. She is tracking down balls that have no business being returned. She is turning defense into offense in a way that makes older players shake their heads in disbelief. As the players finish their warm-ups and prepare to step up to the baseline for the toss, the tension inside the stadium is practically suffocating. You could cut it with a knife and it would bleed. The air is thick with pregnant anticipation, the kind you only feel when something special is about to happen. Remember, this is not just a game of hitting a fuzzy yellow ball back and forth over a net. This is human drama at its absolute finest, played out in real time with nowhere to hide, no edits, no second takes, no script except the one they write with their rackets. Think about the deeply personal stories attached to the single match. Think about the little kids right now in Manila, in Cebu and Davao, in the remote provinces you've never heard of, holding cheap tennis rackets in their living rooms, watching their ultimate hero step onto the grandest stage in the world. Think about the families united in front of their televisions, parents and children and grandparents all packed onto the same couch, experiencing pure unadulterated joy and fierce national pride every single time the bright colors of the Philippine flag appear on the international broadcast graphic. Win or lose today, Alex Eala is already doing something truly monumental. She's tearing down invisible geographical and cultural barriers that have stood for decades. She is proving to an entire generation of Filipino kids, and kids from everywhere that doesn't traditionally produce tennis champions, that elite talent, coupled with insane, relentless hard work, can rise from anywhere on the globe. She's giving goosebumps to millions of everyday people who see their own lofty dreams, their own daily struggles, reflected in her relentless pursuit of greatness. But make absolutely no mistake about her intentions today. She did not fly to Madrid just to inspire people. She did not travel across the world and sacrifice her body in practice just to be a good story for the broadcasters to talk about during rain delays. She came here to win. She came here to exact revenge for the humiliation she suffered in Monastir. She came here to stare down a giant of the sport and show the entire world the lethal depth of her evolution as a player. She came here to prove she belongs at the top. The stadium lights are burning intensely bright overhead, casting sharp shadows across the red clay. The court has been rolled perfectly smooth, a pristine, beautiful canvas waiting to be violently scarred and torn up by the sliding, desperate feet of two fierce warriors. The chair umpire is climbing into their seat, checking their watch, preparing to call time. The crowd is murmuring, a low, nervous, vibrating hum of anticipation that you can feel in your chest, that resonates in your bones. Hum that is about to erupt into a deafening, thunderous roar the moment the first racket makes contact with the ball. It is the oldest, most classic tale in the history of sports. The unstoppable, blazing force of youth crashing violently head-on into the immovable, icy object of veteran experience. Can the young, fearless Filipina phenom use her blazing speed, her heavy, punishing topspin, and the indomitable fighting spirit of the Natal Academy to batter down the Belgian brick wall? Or will the brilliant, calculating, cold-blooded maestro silence the roaring crowd, outsmart the young prodigy, and remind the entire world exactly why she is considered tennis royalty? The talking is finally done. The expert analysis is over. The predictions mean absolutely nothing now. Now there is nowhere left to hide. There are no excuses left to make, no adjustments to be made in the locker room, no more advice from coaches. It is just two women, two rackets, and the brutal, unforgiving, beautiful red dirt standing between them and victory or defeat. The entire world is watching. The entire country of the Philippines is cheering. The Mutua Madrid Open is about to catch absolute fire. Settle in, brace yourselves, take a deep breath because you're going to need it. The match of the tournament is about to begin.